The rain poured down like tears from the sky, soaking Elena's worn-out sweater. Her stepmother's cruel words still rang in her ears. "You're nothing but a burden. Get out and don't come back." With a shove, Elena had been thrown out of the only home she'd ever known, now left with nothing but the clothes on her body and a small bag. Shivering, she stumbled to a bus stop and collapsed onto the wet bench. Her stomach growled loudly. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. "What do I do now?" she thought, hugging herself for warmth. Just then, the sound of a car pulling up made her look up. A sleek black car, the kind rich people drove, stopped right in front of her. The window rolled down, and a pair of sharp dark eyes studied her. "You look like you could use a ride," the man said, his voice smooth but firm. Elena hesitated. Stranger danger, her mind warned. But the rain was getting heavier, and she had nowhere else to go. Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Richard Ajogu," he replied. "And you look like someone who needs help?" "Richard is the CEO of a multi-billion company. He is everything any lady could dream of as a man. A typical every woman's dream. Like he is drawn out of a magazine. Girls of different classes flocked around him, but he never liked any of them. He believed in true love, and it was obvious that all the ladies were after his wealth, but eventually he fell in love, and he fell for the wrong one and got his heart broken." He looked at Elena as if they had something in common. Something in his gaze wasn't just pity, it was understanding. Against her better judgment, Elena nodded. The car door opened, and she stepped inside, the warmth wrapping around her like a hug. As the car drove off, Elena wondered, is this my salvation or the start of another? Richard's penthouse was like something out of a dream, huge, shiny, and filled with expensive things. Elena gaped at the crystal chandelier, her wet shoes sinking into the plush carpet. "You'll stay here tonight," he said, handing her a towel. "But I have a proposition for you." Elena frowned. "What kind of proposition?" Richard's eyes squinted. "My ex-girlfriend Vanessa is getting married next week, to the man she left me for." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with anger. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend. In return, I'll give you a place to stay, new clothes, and a fresh start." Elena's heart raced. "This is crazy, but why me?" she whispered. "'Cause," Richard said, "you have nothing to lose. And I need someone who won't ask too many questions." After a long pause, Elena nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." The next few days were so busy that she barely had enough time to rest. Stylists transformed her into a beauty queen. A strict etiquette teacher taught her how to walk, talk, and dine like a lady. Through it all, Adrian watched, sometimes cold, sometimes almost kind. One evening, she caught him staring at an old photo of Vanessa, his expression pained. "You really loved her, didn't you?" Elena asked softly. Richard's mask slipped for just a second. "It doesn't matter now," he muttered before walking away. Elena wondered if this revenge was really what he wanted, or if he was just as lost as she was. The day of the wedding came. The wedding was grander than anything Elena had ever seen. Golden lights, towering flower arrangements, and guests dressed in glittering gowns. She clung to Richard's arm, nervous but determined. Then Vanessa appeared, radiant in her white dress, her eyes widening when she saw Richard and Elena. "Richard," Vanessa said, forcing a smile. "I didn't know you were bringing a date." "Meet Elena," Richard said smoothly. "My girlfriend." Vanessa's smile vanished for a moment, but she quickly regained composure. Elena could see the jealousy flashing in her eyes. Good, she thought. Maybe this is working. But as the night went on, something unexpected happened. Richard stopped glancing at Vanessa. Instead, he kept looking at her, really looking at her. When they danced, his hand lingered on her waist. When she laughed at a joke, he smiled too. Later, when the moon was high, he took her for a walk. As they sat at a spot watching the city at night, Richard sighed. "This wasn't how I thought tonight would go." "What do you mean?" Elena asked. "I thought seeing Vanessa would make me feel better," he admitted. "But I don't even understand how it makes me feel." He reached out to kiss her. Elena's breath caught. Was this still part of the act? Or was something else? He apologized and withdrew himself. He stood up immediately and they went home. Elena was still stretching in bed early in the morning when she heard a soft knock. As she opened the door, Richard was standing there with a napkin in his hand. "What do you want for breakfast?" he asked, his eyes fixed on her, something he has never done before in his entire life. Elena forgot to breathe, her mouth open, but no word came out. "Elena," Richard called her. That was when she regained herself. No one has ever done that for her before. She had always been the one cooking for everyone and will still go hungry after cooking. She slowly said anything, which is nearly a whisper, and with that Richard left. Within few minutes he returned and asked her to join him in the dining. The morning was like a dream to Elena. And just like that, Richard and Elena's fake relationship became very, very real. They fell in love, slowly, then all at once. And one day Adrian got down on one knee. "Elena," he said, holding out a sparkling ring, "will you marry me? For real this time?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Yes. The morning of Elena and Richard's wedding dawned bright and golden, as if the universe itself was celebrating. Elena stood before the floor-length mirror in her ivory lace gown, her fingers trembling as she touched the delicate embroidery. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered to her reflection. Just months ago she'd been shivering at a bus stop. Now she was about to marry the man who'd shown her that love wasn't just a fairy tale. A knock at the door startled her. "Elena?" Richard's voice was uncharacteristically nervous. "Can I see you before the ceremony?" "Richard, that's bad luck," the stylist scolded, but Elena was already moving toward the door. When she opened it, Richard's breath caught in his throat. His eyes darkened with emotion as he took her in. He swallowed hard. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Elena felt warmth bloom in her chest. "You're not supposed to say that yet," she teased, but her voice wobbled. Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I wanted to give you this privately." Inside was a delicate silver locket. When Elena opened it, she saw two tiny photos, one of her mother, the only picture she'd managed to save from her old life, and one of Adrian as a boy. "So you'll always know," he said quietly, "that you have family now, both from your past and your future." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks as Adrian fastened the locket around her neck. In that moment, any lingering fear that this was too good to be true melted away. Their honeymoon in Santorini was everything dreams were made of: azure waters, sun-drenched villas, and Richard's arms around her every night. But when they returned home, reality came crashing in. One rainy afternoon, while Adrian was at work, Elena decided to visit the little bakery they loved. As she stepped out with a box of cinnamon rolls, Richard's favorite, a shrill voice cut through the damp air. "Well, well, if it isn't Cinderella." Elena froze. There, under a tattered umbrella, stood her stepmother, older, harder, but with the same cruel twist to her mouth. "You," Elena breathed, her grip tightening on the bakery box. "Did you really think I wouldn't find you?" The woman's eyes raked over Elena's designer bag and diamond wedding ring. "Living the high life while your own family starves? After everything I did for you." Elena's pulse roared in her ears. "You threw me out in the rain with nothing. And look how well you turned out." Her stepmother laughed bitterly. "You owe me." No, the word came out sharper than Elena expected. "I don't owe you anything." The woman's face contorted. "We'll see what your rich husband says when I tell the papers how his precious wife abandoned her poor old." "Try it." A new voice cut through the tension like a blade. Richard stepped from the sleek car behind them, his expression deadly calm. "I have teams of lawyers who'd love to dig into how you cared for Elena, starting with the police report from when you broke her wrist at 14. Elena gasped. She'd never told Richard that story. Her stepmother paled. That was an accident." Richard slid an arm around Elena's shoulders. "Leave. Now. Or I won't be polite." As the woman scurried away, Elena trembled. Richard turned her to face him, his thumbs brushing her tears. Why didn't you tell me she hurt you? I was ashamed, Elena whispered. I thought maybe I deserved it. Richard's voice cracked. Never. You deserve nothing but love. He pressed his forehead to hers. Let me take you home. That night, curled together by the fireplace, Richard handed her a sealed envelope. I had my investigators look into your mother's family. I thought you might want to know. With shaking hands, Elena opened it. Inside were photos of a kind-faced, her maternal aunt, along with two smiling cousins she'd never met. A note read, "We've been searching for you since your mother passed." They want to know you, Richard said softly. Elena wept into his shoulder, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that she wasn't alone anymore. She had him, she had a new family. And most importantly, I have myself now, she realized aloud. The girl who survived. The woman who chose to love. Richard kissed her forehead. And I have you. Always. Outside, the last of the storm clouds cleared, revealing a sky full of stars, as bright and endless as their future.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share.
See you around.